Good morning. This is DiEM25 Beyond the Balcony Zoom. We are here with the Spanish National Collective today, and our aim is to discuss with our comrades how our international and European objectives are to be declined in the Spanish situation, and which is our position in this historical moment in the different countries, Spain in this case, and in these difficult circumstances. I'm just the moderator in this occasion, and so I'll give the word to Yanis for a short introduction. Everybody shall have 3 minutes for talking. We can be a bit larger, but not so much in order to leave to let everybody have a speak. So Yanis, please, you can start.
Thank you, Simona. Thank you, everyone. DiEM25 is probably the only movement in Europe, the only movement I know that convenes meetings, internal meetings between members, while live streaming them across Europe, across the world. Transparency is a prerequisite for democracy. We have been demanding of the Eurogroup and of the European Union Council that they live stream their events, their meetings, so that citizens of Europe know what their representatives are saying on their behalf. We are putting this in practice to demonstrate that it's perfectly possible to be having free and frank exchange on matters that can even be controversial when we can disagree with one another. But we don't really mind the wide public out there even watching us and hearing us when we are disagreeing. This is a small, if you want, confirmation of our basic principle about transparency being something that really is missing in Europe. Take, for instance, the current coronavirus disaster, a catastrophe in Spain, so many deaths, so much suffering, and so much greater suffering to follow as a result of the escalation of the economic depression that's going to hit Spain, Greece, Italy, indeed the whole of Europe. And yet our great and good leaders are still convening behind closed doors, still refusing to come to terms with the profound causes of the crisis that started a long time ago and which this mindless virus is simply accelerating and deepening. This is a meeting of DiEM25 regarding Spain. So allow me a few words to remind ourselves why DiEM25 exists. We exist because those of us who got together at the Volksbühne Theater on the 9th of February 2016, and I'm wearing the Volksbühne t-shirt, by the way, just by accident. We made an assessment. And the basic assessment was, firstly, that Europe is disintegrating at immense cost for the weakest of European citizens. Secondly, that the reason why it is disintegrating is because the whole architecture of the European Union, and especially the Eurozone, was not designed to handle the gigantic crisis after 2008, 2010. Thirdly, because the establishment of the European Union was adopting a policy of socialism for the bankers and harsh austerity for everybody else. And the only natural repercussion of that was the disintegration of Europe, which in itself was strengthening fascists, neo-fascists, authoritarians everywhere. Spain was supposed to be an example that was different in the sense that you did not have a xenophobic, racist extreme right-wing renaissance, but in the last few years with Vox, that was proven not to be so. And finally, DiEM came together because we believed that nation-state-based political parties that are founded within the nation-state and where the manifesto of each of these nation-state parties makes promises to the citizens of that nation-state and then tries to fulfill them somehow by winning government, that model is finished. That model can no longer work in Europe because the crisis is common, the banking crisis is common, the austerity is common, and the only ones who understand that are the bankers who have united and internationalized across Europe, and the fascists who have united and internationalized. The only ones who have not united and internationalized are the left, the progressives, even the liberals. So we decided to create a pan-European movement where we enter DiEM not as Spaniards, Catalans, Greeks, French, Italians. We enter it as progressives, as Europeans, who we're still proud of our culture, of our language, of our literature, of our music, of our nationality, or of our ethnicity, whatever, our identities. But we enter not as members of a federal movement. We are not, we don't have the Spanish NC, the French NC, they are not the constituent parts where the DiEM coordinating collective is at the top, answerable to the national collectives. No, we have members and then we have coordination across Europe. And the role of the Spanish NC, of the Greek NC, of the Italian NC is to organize activities within the countries, but it's not to create a federation of nation-state-based organizations. That proved at the same time the right way to go, but also we did not manage to gain political power or strength that is proportional to the importance of our manifesto, of our European Green New Deal, the common agenda that we put to voters last May in the European Parliament elections. So we were right, but we have not fulfilled our potential. And there is a lot of work to be done. And the reason why we need to fulfill our potential is not because we are self-interested, but because we still believe, or at least I believe, speaking for myself, that Europe will not survive unless DiEM's project gains strength, because there's nobody out there doing it. Let me finish by commenting specifically about Spain as an excellent example of everything I've said so far. Look at our comrades and friends in Podemos. I think they are an excellent case study of what doesn't work. Podemos started brilliantly with the Indignados, like Syriza started in Greece with the Activism in Syntagma Square. We're very close with them on a number of things. But the fundamental failure we had in conversing with Podemos and getting together with Podemos concerned Europe. I remember from 2016 onwards, we had an open channel of communication, and we were trying to impress upon them a very simple idea, that unless they have a European agenda that is radical and realistic, which allows them to answer questions in Spain, questions that citizens put to them, questions that journalists put to them, opponents and friends, and say to them, for instance, if you become the government, what are you going to do in the Eurogroup, in the first Eurogroup meeting, when you sent a Podemos finance minister? They didn't in the end, of course, but if you do manage to get elected, you have a fully fledged Podemos government in Spain, and your finance minister goes to Europe, what are you going to propose? What will your prime minister, Prime Minister Iglesias say in the European Union Council? Unless you can answer that question, you have a plateau. You cannot really go beyond being a protest party. We said the same thing to Die Linke in Germany. We said the same thing to our comrades everywhere in Europe. This is why we ran with the European New Deal. The European New Deal, the Green New Deal for Europe, was a manifesto that made sense, answered all these questions. We worked in a participatory way in order to put it together. I'm personally very proud of it, both of the participatory process that gave birth to the Green New Deal for Europe, but also to the actual program. It's a fantastically coherent, progressive program, and one that we could run in Norway with, in Spain with, in France, in Greece, and so on. Now that is something that the European Party of the Left never managed. Die Linke didn't do it, Mélenchon didn't do it, Podemos couldn't do it. Podemos had a policy of not having a policy about what they would do at the pan-European level. And whenever we invited them to come to a discussion with us on the Green New Deal for Europe, they either came and they didn't have much to say, or they didn't come. This lack of a pan-European structure and a pan-European manifesto is the reason why the left is insignificant and irrelevant electorally. We have that structure and we have this program. What we never had was the organization, the movement building capacity in order to make this work. So that's something we need to change. Either we give up on DiEM, or we add organizational work and strength to the pan-European structure and program that we have. Thank you.
If nobody, please Gonzalo, start talking. Unmute you and.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like this is my first interaction with the CC. So my name is Gonzalo, and I want to start by thanking the CC members and especially the founders of DiEM25 and Yanis, of course, in particular. Just very shortly, I want to thank them because in what has been my own political awakening, since 10 years ago, there have been a few landmarks, and I only want to name 3 or 4. One is the Arab Springs in 2010. Another one, of course, I'm from Spain, so was the 15M, the Indignados movement, very close to where I'm now, though I cannot go to Puerta del Sol since a couple of months due to the confinement. And then the 2 other ones, one is directly related to Yanis because it's Syriza uprising in the 2014-15 with all the troubles, I understand. And the last one was the founding of DiEM25 in 2016. So I've been a member of DiEM since the beginning, but I very recently joined the NC in Spain 3 months ago. My own background is very European. I was born in Switzerland. I've studied, I'm an engineer, and I was Erasmus grantee in France for a while. I love Europe. I suppose I was federalist before all this happened, And I mean, I follow a little bit the works of Spinelli, and I think it's probably not, as Yanis says, it's too late for federalism. We have to switch to something different. Anyway, I have one particular question which I distributed to the group, particularly about. I like the way Eric rephrased it. I said preaching to the converted and reaching beyond our own bubble. Because I've been close to other progressive movements in the past, particularly the founding of Podemos in Spain. And I think we spend a lot of time talking to people who think like us, and sometimes discussing really very small details and even having some kind of confrontations on things which are not fundamental. And we do something that is fundamental, which is we denounce our opponents. No, we denounce fascism, xenophobism, negationism, and this is something really necessary. But I think this is not enough, because the problem that I see happening now is that the ideologies are becoming blocks, like before large conflicts in the past, and so we don't speak to each other. No, there are people, there are movements, extremist rights in Spain, and we don't talk to them, and they don't talk to us, and we are lacking a common language. No, and so my question is, I think we DiEM have a particularly good position to be sources of dialogue with our opponents, no? Because we are pan-European, because we are grassroots, because we are transparent. And my question is, are we working in that direction, like training ourselves to talk with people who don't think like us, and sometimes even get on our nerves, no? Because I said it's a lot of energy that you have to develop to talk to, maybe not to the extreme right, but at least let's talk to the moderate right, and not spend all the time discussing with Podemos whether they are. Of course, we still have to talk with Podemos, no? But I think we have to train ourselves, and this takes time. And maybe we have to do some internal trainings in DiEM25, and we have to construct a group of people with the ability to be this kind of dialogue makers of the future, no? And probably I leave it here, and I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Gonzalo. This is very interesting. Actually, this is one of the many things we are working on, but surely it is needed. English National Collective suggested to point out some simple concepts and hammer on them. I think it is a very good idea. I give the stage to Dolores. Please, Dolores, unmute you. And
yes, thank you. My name is Dolores Bajo. I'm of the National Collective in Spain, and also the social media coordinator. First of all, I want to thank DiEM25 and the SEC for this opportunity to speak from Spain. Well, about the issues, in my opinion, I think that we should learn from the previous crisis of 2008, still unresolved, and with a serious impact on workers, from which we have not yet emerged. From the COVID-19 pandemic, economic interests have made a fictitious crisis, I think. For example, in Spain, the GDP has fallen by 5.2%. Maybe we'll reach the 9 or 10%. How can they affirm it without taking into account that citizens cannot go out to buy clothes, we cannot go out to buy shoes, repair cars, and so on. So the logical thing is in this situation is that the economy stops because of the isolation. On the other hand, companies have preferred to regulate their factories and import directly from China to the detriment of national workers and their labor rights, but also with the loss of competitiveness of small and family businesses. In this crisis, we have realized that a globalized world is not the same as depending on the other markets for our supplies. We have to invest in national research at all levels, reinvent our industry, our investigations, and the small business, and specifically in Spain, as the Mediterranean countries, not to support our economy in the tourism that we are doing since years ago. We have to invest in national research at all levels, reinvent our industry and small businesses. Since we started with the coronavirus crisis, there are good Spanish researchers looking for a vaccine or treatment. Companies from various sectors that have started to manufacture face masks, oxygen pumps, and more. Indeed, we have guaranteed our food suppliers with our local agriculture, with our own agriculture and livestock. Why don't we take advantage of this inertia and bet on a stronger local industry and generate national products in all the sectors? If some has done, we must continue in this path. We know that the European Union has failed in a common internal policy. We expect it. And actually, everything is based on the economy, which is more important, which that has been done so far. We must learn to change our future oriented towards a better and fair economy for all, including our planet and the people who are in. We must not forget that the term environmental not only includes nature and animals, but also human beings. So I think that it's time to start with our Green New Deal for Europe and implement the implementation of these policies in all our actions. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dolores. Michael Allen, would you say something?
Yes. Okay. Good morning, everybody. As some of you will have noticed, I'm English, but I am resident in Spain, and that's why I'm here. And I have the great privilege. I'm the only person amongst us who can speak my own language. I was planning to talk about an exercise that we have been trying to get going in the last few weeks to sort of prepare policies that we might push at the end of this this COVID lockdown. And I was going to describe a lot of wonderful ideas that at least have come into my mind. But as I was going through them, I basically had an existential crisis, because what I see is that we are just like any other movement. We're inventing ideas, policies, and worrying about how to transmit them to the people we want to convince. And one of the things I was listening to the British conference last night, where there was a talk about the message, making the message simple. Let us, how do we get through to people? How do we convince them? And one of the people, Rosemary, said, "Well, actually, we should be listening." And I thought, yes, that's really right. But the fact is that nobody does really listen. We can listen, but we hear what we want to, and so what we listen and we reinterpret, and then we push out a message, a policy. And I think we came to the conclusion that, in fact, in this, where we can actually take advantage of this this COVID crisis, is in trying to get beyond that to a position where people, individuals in the society, have some real direct say in what happens. Now, we know that the economy in all of these countries is in a difficult position. We know it's going to need to be kickstarted. We know that the government is going to have to continue to put in large amounts of money into the society. And they're going to be looking for sources of funding. So they're going to be looking at the tax system. And I think this is where we can have we can have some leverage. In Spain, when you fill in your tax form, you can elect or not to give a certain percentage, 0.7% of your tax to the church. Now, if that system can work for one thing, which is the church, that system can work for everything. I suggest that we propose and push for an extension of that principle, so that on our tax returns, we can indicate what percentage of our taxes we want to go to various budgetary subheads, so that I could, for example, say, well, I want 50% of my taxes to go to the green economy. I want 10% to go to the health sector. I want to support the police with another 10%, things like that. Now that is a simple message. That's a simple thing we can actually push for at a time when government is susceptible on the tax front. We can also suggest that they tax the 10% of the population that have 50% of the income. That's another thing. But I'm more interested in that element that would give each of us more democracy, because basically, if you have some direct control over government spending, you have quite a lot of decision-making power there. There you are. That's my contribution.
Marta, you have the floor.
Yes. Hello. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Cici.
Sorry to interrupt. Please present yourself before speaking.
Yeah. Well, my name is Marta. I was elected last year for the Spanish NC. I'm from Madrid, but I'm living in Barcelona, so I have the two cities in mind. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that's what you were saying, Michael, about that we have to listen to people who vote or to think different things from us. I would say we not only have to listen, but we have to try to understand. For me, this is a turning point. We are living in Spain another crisis in 10 years. And again, the working class will be the one who received more damage. And I think that now that we stopped everything, because we literally stopped everything. I'm coming from my first walk, one hour walk in 1 month and a half. And I was so happy to be in the street. I saw so many people. Yeah. So we really stopped everything, and we have the opportunity to restart again. But we cannot forget that a lot of people is waiting for the economy to restart the fast as we can. And most of them, they are not going to think about the way, the green way to start it, or the perfect way to start it, but they just want to restart the economy. So for me, the main question is, how can we approach to all these people and to listen to them, to understand that, but also to make us understandable and focus on the importance of on the common good. You know, because even now that even those people who didn't care about task because they preferred private health or private education, now they are asking for some help from the government. So for me, this is the one of the points where we can act and to say, well, now that we are asking the government to help us, because I cannot open my shop because I lost my job. You can do it because before we paid our task, we built a progressive government, or we tried, you know. So I think we have to be close to the needed ones, to those who, to the working class, who is going to suffer twice this crisis, but also to find the opportunity to empower the common good. Thank you.
So, thank you, Marta. I think we can start giving some answers from the CC. But by now, I give the stage to Borja. I don't know how to pronounce this. Sorry. Don't forget to present yourself.
Okay, it's Borja. No worries at all. So I'm Borja Moreno from the NC here in Spain. I am a doctor. I work as a coroner. In English, I think it's a pathologist, a forensic doctor. So I'm really close to, well, people health problems that brings them death. So I'm really concerned also about the problem that brings to people their health problems, problems in their health that they are not aware. I mean, problems like pollution. So I would like to center my well, not my speech, but my time to talk about or to make you a question about the Green New Deal, one of the big policies of DiEM25. So especially in Spain, as we have seen and Dolores said, we don't have a big industry in Europe. That means that when we have a crisis, a sanitary or a crisis like the COVID pandemic, brings us a lack of products, of basic products, except of course food, like green products, in which in Spain, I think we have very good lands, fruits and vegetables. But that's not the point. The point is that our economy is based in tourism, which brings the lack of industry. So in my opinion, we have to rethink after this pandemic, after this crisis. And as Michael said also, we have to focus, especially in Spain, this transition to the Green New Deal, which means the question is Spain a strategic place as how do I say, as natural place? I mean, because of its weather, the sea, its wind, the light, the many hours of light we have in our country. Is Spain a strategic or a specific place in the whole Europe, which could bring this new industry based in this new Green Deal? I don't know, but I would like Spain became the most important place in the whole continent to bring us this kind of energy, because as we know, as we can see in newspapers from all over the world, we are not like the #1 country with these renewable energies. So I think we should take care a lot more of our nature in this country, but introduce in a first way this transition to this new kind of energy for the rest of Europe, not only to be the touristic place, the place to come and have a beer, or the place to buy food and vegetables only. I would like my country to be one of the top countries in Europe to bring them clean energy. And that's all. Well, that's because I live in the island of Mallorca, in the Balearic Islands, and I'm really keen also with a touristic thing that is going to happen in the future in Mallorca, because with the COVID, nobody's coming, and we are really in a really bad situation in the whole Mediterranean. And that's all. Thank you very much for listening and for coming today.
Thank you, Borja.
Thank you.
Jordi, or Hardy, sorry, I'm very bad at pronounce. Would you like to answer something to the first interventions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Simona. Good morning, everyone. Well, by the way, my name is Jordi in Catalan. If you want it complex, can be Jorge in Spanish, but I think you would never be able to say that. So let's say in Jordi. There are many things that have been said that I absolutely agree. I think we are in a crossroads at this moment of crisis. I think this is it's a major crisis that analysts are thinking. Yesterday, the Spanish government said that we're going to have a recovery next year of 7% of increase. I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be a lower recovery. So the crisis is going to be major than expected. At this moment, as it happened in 2008, we have two different forces struggling. One, the force of the big companies. I work on the city council, and I already seeing that big companies are pushing the governments to try to be subsidized with public money for their recovery, which it's not really a recovery because the economy has changed. We cannot go back exactly at the same place where we were. So at this moment, as Marta was saying, what do we tell people that are expecting this recovery to be faster? I think there are two things. One, it has to be a fast recovery, as fast as possible, okay. But the other one has to be a stabilized recovery. If we try to go to the same industries fast, what is going to happen is the same that happened with the banking, for example, or housing on the past. All the money was there. When we try to give them money again, it didn't work. We're having more taxes, but those industries weren't recovering because we cannot go back at the same moment. If we want a recovery, we have to change the economy. We have to change the economy, and this is possible. On the past, they used to tell us that it was impossible to stop, I don't know, cars, to stop the industries that we had to depend on tourism. If tourism stopped, it would be the end of the world. Well, that happened. Tourism stopped. Cars stopped. Okay, that was possible. It wasn't a good situation, but it was possible. So it means that it's possible to rethink the economy. It's possible to go to another economy. So this is what the crossroads is about. What is the next economy are we going to the traditional sectors that promote inequality, that promote climate change? Is that the economy that we want to go? Or we want to go to a new economy, a stabilized economy with more equality, fighting against the climate change, and so on. That means not helping big companies that they have so many surpluses in the past, but helping small and medium-sized companies which can change to this new economy easier. we have a tool in DiEM25, which is the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is a great program. It's very complete. It takes into mind the income, taxing. It takes into mind what the expenses, where are we going to use them. So I think what we should do in Spain, but all around Europe, is use this Green New Deal and try to make it local. Think about it, take the Green New Deal and say, okay, what of that Green New Deal is necessary to do in Spain? In Spain, we have this tourism industry that Borja was talking about, which is one of the most inequality industries in the world. People having so low wages, working so many hours, and so on. So what we have to do is use this Green New Deal in Spain, but I'm also encouraging other DMers around Europe to do that and localize it. Think about it and use it to get out from the crisis. And sorry, the last thing is that I wouldn't agree with Michael about his taxing proposal. I mean, this is not about charity. This is not about people choosing to help some sectors. This is something about solidarity. This is something about justice. If we choose a tax where people can choose where to put their money, then wealthier people probably will put that on tourism because they get richer on those industries. So I think what we have to do is the majority of the people have to change the government and make wealthier people give the money to these kind of new policies for equality, for the cooperative and social economy and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordi. Ivan Alberto, shall you take
Hello, good morning. Thank you everybody for being here. Good morning, Europe. I'm very glad to see you all here, particularly Fotini, as our new member in the European Coordinated Collective. Welcome to see you. Good job. By the way, I'm not currently living in Madrid as I used to be. I am a member elected in the National Collective of Spain and in the National Collective of Italy. And I am here, like all the other friends here, because we all see that Europe must be unified and saved. Otherwise, Europe is going towards a bad road. Well, the current COVID-19 crisis has even worsened what we were already underlying in the past years. The economical crisis that we are facing is even worse than the previous of 10 years ago. Overall Europe, we are facing already an increase in the suicides with people killing themselves. Because when you don't have the food for your children, when you don't have the hope for your future, when you don't see any solution, you can fall in a destroying spiral. So, lucky enough, DiEM25 is a movement that already had and offer solutions. One of the things I liked regarding this movement is the attitude to write proposals, to reasons through the problems, and to offer solutions. We cannot have these solutions country by country. For instance, the Green New Deal is a marvelous environmental recovery and economical recovery plan, but can work only in a continental-wide area and effort. Also, we cannot face much of the current enemies of European people if we only think in a local way. We need to have a European movement. We cannot have a federation of single parties or local interests and so on. We must also unify our movement as much as we can through the overall European continent. One of the recent solutions we are offering is also our 3-point plans against the COVID-19, which is made of an offer of 1 trillion euros. And we're not talking of millions, we're not talking of billions, we are talking of 1 trillion euro from the European Investment Bank to raise, to pump up the overall continental economy, plus a 2,000 euro of solidarity cash sent to every European citizen through the European Bank and the commercial banks. And we were told a few months ago that these things are not possible. We faced in these weeks, in this month, that they indeed are possible. Even in the United States, Donald Trump was copying our ideas. And you all can see the difference, as Boha already said, in the environmental, in the pollution we are facing in this continent after this lockdown. So we know this can be done. The third of the 3-point plan also is, in fact, the European Green Recovery Plan, which is the exact opposite of the austerity. We need an agency with the purpose to let our economy grow, but not because we like economy, because we want people to be healthy. We want people to be happy. We want people to have solidarity, because if we could learn something from this crisis, is that currently in Europe we are lacking of solidarity, we are lacking of continental solutions, we are lacking of a continental public health. This must stop. So DiEM25 is lucky enough to be a movement with 120,000 followers, people. But in Europe, we are 400 million people. So we really need help. I guess one of our main purpose should be that of asking for volunteers. Please join us. Please start to work with us. Please help us each other. If we don't help us, if we don't help each other, we cannot help the continent. Thank you.
Dolores, you asked for the stage. Are you ready?
Okay, thank you. So is regarding what you're saying, Alberto, I think it's very important that we need, in Spain at least, we need the economic growth. And nowadays, the most of business in Spain are local and little or small business. It is with autonomous workers. Just in the last crisis, we lost a lot of those companies, and with the increasing of the unemployed people, sorry. So I think, and with this crisis, with this isolation, with this lockdown, a lot of these little shops has to be closed. And now I think that we have to reopen and restart all the economy based on this little and local business. So by that, I think it is my opinion about this crisis and how can we go out from it. And that's all. Thank you.
Gonzalo, please. And after, I would like to take the stage, me too.
Okay. Yes, I also wanted to build on what Alberto was saying about somehow asking you for help. So now taking the advantage that we have you, the CC, talking with us. As you were saying, I think we need support because we don't only want to talk among ourselves, as I said in my first intervention, no, because we mostly agree on the policies, no, and we can spend a lot of time talking about details, but we would like not only to have the idea of the policies, but to have the opportunity to put them into practice, no, and this means probably accessing to parliament, getting our ideas progress. So we have here some of you, particularly in Greece, no, you have an electoral wing which is represented in parliament. I understand that other countries have much more also support from the people. We have a real problem in Spain for which we need help, is that we have very few active grassroots people. The DSCs are very few. It seems that we are not being successful at getting support for our ideas. So we would like to know how you can help us, how you can give us advice, how we can interact more with our European peers in other countries where DiEM is more active. And I have a metaphor, no, or a think. You know, in Spain, at the end of the Franco era, the political parties of the left were, of course, they were not trained to actually access power. No, they were trained to be in the opposition and to resist. So I remember at that time the Germans, I don't know exactly if it was some of the German left invited the socialists, in particular the Socialist Party, which after some years was in power after the transition, and they trained them and they helped them and they built ties which then were also very useful for having Spain access the European Union. So the question now is how can we help each other? And I'm not only thinking about helping you Spanish people from Greece or from Germany or from France. I'm also thinking about how can we, how can we Spaniards help political movements for now in Hungary or in Poland, no, where there is this real risk of totalitarianism. I'm very interested because I think this is the heart of DiEM, is how we build these links that allow us to help each other in both directions. And that's my question or my request for help. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say something about listening and being able to hear. I think what's the essential thing is to be able to give answers and to frame people's experience. Human word is an interpreted word. It is the way we frame our experience. We explain ourselves why this is happening to us is essential. And in this moment, people is living a terrible experience of unemployment, poverty, and the COVID just did accelerate the process. But this is a structural process that comes from the disintegration of Europe, lack of solidarity of Europe, and from the technological development. The International Monetary Fund foresees an unemployment of 80% of people all over the world because of technological development. And so we need to cope with a world where only the 20% shall have a job. And this means we need to reframe our idea of work. What this situation is leading to now is unemployment is a fault, and a job is a privilege, but you need, even those who have a job need to make a life. So this is the experience we need to frame. And it's urgent to frame it. And it's so urgent that we should say something, for example, on what shall happen on May the 8th with the Eurogroup signing the death sentence for Europe with a non-plan for COVID, instead of a European rescue fund for COVID, for the economical consequences of COVID. The Eurogroup chose to have individual nations to get loans to cope with it, and this shall take us to more austerity, more of the policies that took us until there. This is what we need to fight, and this is the frame we should give to people to understand their experience and fight back austerity, fight back this Europe. This is also my answer to the question, how can we help other European countries, people, and how can we get more volunteers? Of course, we are making this Beyond the Balcony call to ask people to join us and help us to have a vision for Europe and not just for individual states, because and then I stop, sorry. Podemos issue and every national party issue is that at a national level you are powerless. You cannot do anything but being prey of austerity, of multinationals, and of the power of the few. So what we can do for each other is to fight together at a European level for a real European unity and for a European rescue fund. That's why we have our 3 points proposal to push forward. Dolores has asked for the stage, but I'll give the stage to Yanis before, if you don't mind.
No. I prefer to listen to Dolores first.
Okay.
Thank you, Yanis. I was saying, Simona, I want to take profit of this window to all our DMers and other people to say that we have to active DiEM25 in Spain. So I ask you to join us, to help us to help DiEM25 doing translations, graphics, and so on. We need you to talk, all people you have around you, about us, about DiEM25, because we are the unique transnational movement. Thank you.
Yanis, would you like to?
Yeah, thanks, Simona. A few comments on everything I heard, and then a proposal. Gonzalo, you're absolutely right. Our job is not to be preaching to the converted. We have to do that too. But this is not our job. And our job is not to concentrate on the audience of Podemos. Our job is to talk to everyone. In our manifesto, we're very clear. We're talking to the left, we're talking to the Greens, we're talking to feminists, but also we're also talking to progressive conservatives, conservatives who see what's happening is not conservative. What's happening is a combination of idiocy and complete pandering to a tiny oligarchy. There are many conservatives who are not happy with what's going on. And not because they're fascists, but because it's not particularly conservative to take trillions to give to the bankers. Okay, even a neoliberal, a genuine neoliberal, has problems with this. Not the ones who use neoliberalism in order to enrich themselves using the state, because this is what the oligarchy does. You're absolutely right about that, and you are completely correct that denouncing is not enough. But you know, DiEM always knew that. This is why we've always been leading with ideas. We're not just saying no. We're also saying yes. We're saying yes to the Green New Deal for Europe. We have our 3-point plan for the COVID era, the COVID-19 era. We're working on the Progressive International, doing a huge amount of work, which has not become revealed yet, but soon you will see it, the fruits that come out of that. But let's make it clear to ourselves, what is the point of the Green New Deal for Europe? What is the point of DiEM's 3-point plan that you mentioned before, that someone mentioned before? We're not naive. We don't think that because they're good ideas that Merkel is going to read them and say, that's a good idea, let me implement it. No. And this is a message, if you want, for Eurosceptics on the progressive side of politics. People who say that, look, give up on Europe. This European Union is toxic. It's never going to be reformed. You're just stooges of Brussels. This is what they say to us, DiEM, because we have not adopted the language of disintegration. We did not support Brexit. We're not supporting exit of Greece from the European Union, Italexit, and so on. But our answer to them has always been, listen, no one can accuse us of being lapdogs of Brussels. Brussels hate us with a passion, because we say that it's a democracy-free zone, that it is toxic, that it's an oligarchy cartel, it's all that, okay? But what we are saying is that if we didn't have the European Investment Bank, we should invent it, right? In spite of the fact that the way it is being used, it's not helping much. We also say that if we were to adopt the language of disintegration, to go out there and say, this European Union sucks, it's a terrible thing, so let's get out of it. Who would benefit from that? The working class or the fascists? Only the fascists. It is, you know, Matteo Salvini, it's Le Pen, it's Alternative für Deutschland. These are the people who would benefit from that. Our German comrades are never going to benefit from our saying we want Spain out of the EU. Every time I go to Germany and I speak to German comrades, I get this sensation that if I were to say to them, you know, this European Union is not working for us in the South, so we want out. Do you know what they would feel in Hanover, in Hamburg, in Stuttgart, in Berlin? They would feel abandoned, that we are abandoning them. They would feel that it's them and Schäuble, them and Volkswagen. And to those who say you know, you hear a lot about, as a result of understandable disappointment with Brussels and the European Union now, you hear people say, oh, we need a union of the South. Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece getting together. No, we don't. No, we don't. We want a pan-European coalition of progressives. Because you know what? I don't think that the Spanish oligarchy is better than the German oligarchy. Maybe they're worse. I know that the Greek oligarchy is worse than the German oligarchy. I prefer a German oligarch to a Greek oligarch, I can assure you. The ones we have here are mafiosi. They're far worse than Krupp and AEG and Siemens and Deutsche Bank. They're poorer and nastier than the German equivalents. So our message to Eurosceptics of the progressives is, no, we're not going to advocate getting out of the EU. We are going to continue to criticize the EU. We're going to show what could be done by the EU today, not that we expect them to do it. But the only way to mobilize, Gonzalo, you said we need to speak to middle of the road people, right-wing people. The only way to speak to them, if I go to them and say in Madrid, right, let's get out of the EU, you say, okay, go away. But if we say, look, this is a Green New Deal, we could use this instrument of the European Investment Bank together with the European Central Bank, we could do this, that, and the other. And say, yeah, that would be a good idea. And then you say to them, so why are they not doing it? Then you can have access to them. Then you can talk to them. They can. We talked about listening to them, but they've got to listen to us too. The only way to listen to us is if we have this constructive disobedience combination. Constructive, moderate policies that could work. They are never going to implement. They prefer to blow up the European Union than implementing the Green New Deal. Make no mistake. But we need to put it forward, not because we think that we will succeed on the basis of good reformist ideas, but because we need those ideas to show to the people who are not listening to us so far that this is what could be done, and then to make them angry that this is not being done because they realize that it's in their interest that it gets done. And then you can have disobedience. Then you can build up the movement so that we can say no to what the German finance minister, the Dutch finance minister, and so on are doing. Dolores, you talk about the importance of local industry, that we need growth in Spain and in Greece and so on. We have a tsunami of recession coming towards us. Yeah, but we've got to remember, and this is also a comment to Michael. Michael and Dolores, we have large numbers here. The numbers are large. Michael, tax is irrelevant, absolutely irrelevant. Let me just give you a very simple example, right? The European Central Bank has printed since 2014, 7.5 trillion euros. 7.5 trillion euros, and they've given it to the oligarchy. We don't have enough tax to compete with that. Even if we took all the tax from all the countries in Europe and put it together, it would pale into bloody insignificance compared to the amount of money printed on behalf of the oligarchs by the European Central. So we must be practical as well as activists and ethical. We've got to look at these mountains of money, and we need to expose those mountains of money and to show how those mountains of money could be used for good purpose. To support hospitals, to support local firms in Barcelona, in Madrid, in Athens, in Patra, in Aachen, in Stuttgart. To support education, to support solidarity. But that's why we have the European Green New Deal. And this is why we need to constantly update it, so that if you look at the DiEM 3-point plan for the COVID-19 crisis, this is what we've done is we've extracted from the European Green New Deal the three major elements that can be used as an emergency program for dealing with this now, as opposed to what they are doing, which is absolutely nothing. Marta, you mentioned another crisis that is hitting the working class. This is not another crisis. This is the same crisis. What the virus has done is to accelerate the pre-existing crisis. The Euro crisis never went away. They never succeeded in making it go away. What they did was they printed a lot of money, they gave it to the very rich, they stabilized financial markets and imposed huge austerity upon everybody else, okay? The reason why this stupid little virus had such a huge effect was because the vast majority of Europeans were 2 days away from poverty, 2 paychecks away. Whether you were talking to, a worker, precariously employed worker, to a restaurant owner, if they had enough money to survive for 2 days, no more. The vast majority of Europeans, they had no savings, they had debts, and the money they made was just enough to keep going. So you have an interruption in the economy, everybody goes into poverty. And the reason why they were 2 days away from penury, from incapacitation, from bankruptcy, was because the crisis never went away. So it is the same crisis. We have to realize that. Of course, it's made far, far worse by this suspension of capitalism. Borja, you mentioned tourism, and you mentioned green power, renewables. Well, at the level of the nation state, it might have been possible for Spain to have a 20, 30-year plan for rejigging the economy to rely less on tourism. Remember, in Greece, we rely even more on tourism than you do. The percentage of the economy that is due to tourism is it's 3 times as much as it is in the percentage as it is in Spain. So we face a calamity here, a total implosion. People are there, you know, we have the lowest number of deaths from the virus, but we'll have the largest number of deaths from hunger in this country, in Greece, because also tourism. But where it is impossible to have a proper plan is when it comes to renewables at the nation state. At the European at the European level, we need a green energy union. It is in the Green New Deal. So, you know, some places have more wind, some places have more sun, some places have a greater capacity to produce batteries. So the rational thing for Europe would be to create a pan-European green energy union and to fund it by means of the European Investment Bank and European Central Bank alliance that we've been proposing. It's part of our Green New Deal. If each country tries to create a renewable system, it will be ridiculous. It will be the most inefficient and stupid thing to try to do. And similarly, when it comes to industrial planning, planning of the economy, it's only at the European level where we can say, okay, we are going to have a little bit more, you know, tourism is going to be supported there. It will be supported in conjunction with biological agriculture, with green agriculture, so that, you know, nowadays you go to a hotel in Costa del Sol or Corfu, okay, and you are served stuff provided by Lidl that comes from I don't know where. So you don't even have local produce being served in the hotel. So we have the, you know, the apotheosis of irrationality and of not using the resources, the local resources, the European resources. Okay, now let me just wrap it up. Our ideas, the thing that distinguishes us from all other movements who say the same things that we say about the importance of solidarity, of supporting weak people, of public health, and we're not the only ones saying that. All sorts of different people say that. What we have is a transnational structure, and we have the transnational pan-European manifesto. I don't think anybody else has that. Yeah. So this is our strength. As I said in my introduction, where we're missing out is in numbers. We don't have enough people in organizers, activists in Spain, in Portugal. In Greece, we're doing much better, but, you know, in Germany, we have quite a few. But in France, how do we build up that third plank? We have the policy, we have the structure, now we need the activists. We need to bring in volunteers. I think we all agree on that. Now, I don't think we are going to succeed by going out there and preaching, as Gonzalo said, our manifesto, just on its own. We just won't succeed. We have tried that for 4 or 5 years now. It's not enough. It was enough to create us, but it's not enough to go out there to people who are now starving. You know, they can't sleep at night because they're full of a genuine existentialist angst, Michael, not the one we have, the one that caused by the fact that they don't know what's going to dawn upon them tomorrow. My proposal, and it's a proposal that we've made when we talk to our comrades in France, in Italy, in Britain, and so on. We need to combine 2 things. Firstly, as Jordi said quite correctly, to take our Green New Deal for Europe and localize it, adapt it to the specific circumstances, not just of the country, but of regions as well. That's one point. And municipalities, regions, and so on. Number 1. Number 2, even more important, collective actions. That is, there are so many examples, and there will be even more examples, of attacks upon working people, upon public health services, upon, I mean, look at what's happening in Madrid with the care homes, the way in which private care homes have effectively killed people intentionally, right? Now, what we can bring to them, to these issues, you know, warehouses where Amazon workers are exploited to death, or supermarkets where people are asked to work for, half the salary, twice the number of hours. We can pick out one or two such cases. We're a small movement. There aren't that many of us, but one to begin with. One such example of exploitation, of doing damage to good people. And we can make this the DiEM Spain campaign for the week, and have the whole of DiEM across Europe support that action that day by saying, for instance, that supermarket, okay? Let's have every DiEMer from Sweden to Portugal, from Ireland to Cyprus, okay? Start an internet campaign against this company in Andalusia, in Valencia, right? Let's all of them target that company and have a pan-European campaign against that company and in support of particularly striking workers or a family that lost somebody to a care home in Madrid. And combine this. You see, this is what the combination that only DiEM can have. A pan-European campaign that is very local. And together with that, localize the Green New Deal and bring it out. That's how we build the movement, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Yanis. There is a question in the chat about how did you do in Greece with Mera25, and on YouTube there are questions about carbon tax and tax havens. So if anybody in the Spanish NC or if Fotini wants to answer, it would be good. Fotini, you volunteered to answer about Mera25. Can you take the stage?
Thank you, Simona. Hello, everybody. I'm Fotini. I'm a member of CC, a new addition, and you come back to me, to be precise. But I'm also an MP of Mera25, elected at previous national elections of July. And this is why I volunteered to answer Gonzalo's question regarding our experience in the parliament. Let me start by saying that it has been a roller coaster experience where a small parliamentary group working very hard, and in my view, we are quite successful. But let me share with you as well 3 points that I have realized as an MP these 9 months. First of all, our movement, DiEM25, is the only movement that addresses and recognizes the problems as European and international. We are the only ones. We don't see them as problems of Greece, of Spain, of Italy, of Portugal. We see them as pan-European as they are. Secondly, we have and continue to have a complete program, a complete set of solutions addressing and trying to solve all these problems. Indeed, we should enrich it and enlarge it, but we have it, and we are the only ones, and we should try to bring it forward. Third, we have a lot of work ahead of us, not only in Greece, but all over Europe, all over the world. However, it is a historical chance that we should seize. We should really work on that. I completely agree with Yanis on his proposals, and I agree with all of you saying that we should enlarge our bases. This should be our main goal, because we have as Yanis said, we have the program, we have the organization, but we need more people. I completely agree with Yanis that we should localize our actions, bringing the transnationality to the locality, combining the two items. And I would, regarding the localization of our program, I think we should keep in mind and try to also add to it the part of a recovery plan from COVID-19, sorry, as a step forward. And we could maybe combine our program, this recovery plan, and base it on a few pillars, pan-European pillars we could use. For example, it could be tourism, it could be green energy, but for me, these are the two. It's a twofold aim, and we should combine enlargement of our bases and with the enrichment of our program. Thank you.
Nobody is asking for the floor now. I would like to hear what Carlos has to say. Me gustaría saber qué Carlos puedes decir. I think Hardy can translate.
Buenos días, soy Carlos, soy documentalista y content curator. Voy a hacer mis preguntas a través de compartir pantalla, las expondré en pantalla y las veréis.
Disculpa si interrompo. Haces frasi brevi.
Ahí, vamos allá. Esa es, debería moverse. Esta es la primera pregunta de un manifiesto de economistas holandeses que han sacado el otro día. Son las 5 preguntas que quedan muy bien y lo que quería saber era si es una pose o realmente es lo que piensan, sobre todo holandeses. No sé si la leéis bien o le cambio el formato.
Hardy or anybody else can translate this first statement.
Well, he's saying he's a documentalist, and well, he doesn't speak English, so he wrote those questions down. I think, but by what he said, that these questions come from a Dutch manifesto, I think, from several economists. So, well, I understand that he's saying, what do we think about this manifesto? I don't know. I mean, from my point of view, I mean, I should study it in detail, but the questions sounds reasonable, all of them. The thing is, there are other manifestos in Spain, in many places in Europe in this way. The thing for me is, how do we do that, right? So this is what we should start building. And I was referring before about the new economy based on social rights, based on fighting the climate change and so on. And obviously, one of the things that is on the questions are about debt, right? One of the worries, and Yanis has said it several times, is that if we confront this crisis as we did in 2008 by rising debt, we're gonna be in the same no-end road, right? So I agree of most of the questions. I don't know my comrades if would agree.
¿Lo habéis leído? Paso a la siguiente pregunta.
Vas-y. Carlos, ¿voy a hablar? ¿Quieres hablar?
No, las preguntas están ahí. Me queda una y después digo Gracias.
Sí, Carlos, ponlas todas quizá y así luego nos vemos, porque ahora solo se está viendo esta pantalla Si acaso pon las preguntas y luego las comentamos.
Siguiente, que le voy a cambiar el formato porque sale fuera de página. Espera.
Carlos, yo dejaría la pregunta, se ve la pregunta.
Así, vale, esa es la tercera.
Sorry, Jordi. We are in streaming on YouTube. We cannot solve technical issues now. Can you answer Carlos' questions, or should we?
Can I have a try, Simona?
Thank you, Yanis.
Well, Carlos, thank you so much. These are very useful opportunities to have a discussion. Now, you put three things up. One is the Dutch manifesto. One is something about the Schwarz Null, the black zero in Germany, and the other one is about the European Constitution. Well, let's start from the European Constitution. It's part and parcel. It is part of our agenda. We have a very specific proposal. We ran in the European Parliament elections with it on a citizens' assembly process, which begins with the regions, moves to countries, and finally ends at the European level with a pan-European citizens' assembly, the purpose of which is to formulate alternative texts for a European democratic constitution. So we've been working on this now for years, and we even have a process that we have proposed. On the Schwarz Null, the black zero, let me first explain to those who don't know what it is. The German government, since 2011, has committed to a black zero. What does this mean? It means that the budget of the federal government must be at zero plus something. That is, it must never have a deficit. This is a commitment. So it's black because it's just above zero. If it was red, it would be just below zero. Now, the reason why this is significant, and the reason why this black zero is catastrophic for Spain, for Italy, for other countries as well, but absolutely catastrophic for Spain is this. Angela Merkel, 10 days ago, made the declaration that the budget this year of the federal government is going to be, of course, in the red, like everybody's, but next year they will go back to the Schwarz Null, to the black zero. Now, why is this catastrophic? It's catastrophic because in Spain, like in Greece, we're going to have a very large deficit to the order of, minus 10%. I think in Greece it will be minus 15%. In Spain it will be around minus 10%. Minus 10% deficit. Now, what does this have to do with the black zero? It's got to do the following. That when Berlin hits zero next year, have no doubt that Brussels will send an envoy to Madrid who say, come here, you are at minus 10, Germany is at zero, black zero. You need to go towards zero as well. Okay, maybe not to zero, but to minus 3. That's 7% of GDP of austerity. It will destroy Spain. So the faster Germany moves to the black zero, the greater the hit on Spain in the next few years, when you will, your people, our people in Spain, I should say, will be in the process of hoping to recover. And now let me talk about the Dutch program. Look, who can say no to biodiversity? Who can say no to redistribution? Who can say no to reducing consumption of the things that make people unhappy and the planet ill? Debt forgiveness? Well, I have, personally speaking now, I have made a name out of demanding debt haircuts, debt restructuring, debt forgiveness. The problem with this Dutch manifesto is it doesn't say anything regarding how it's all to be achieved. It's like, you know, I want this, I want that, I want that, I want a list of what you want, which is fine. You know, we can agree on that list. The question is, what is your theory of change? What is your proposal? What is your plan? How are you going to achieve that? If you simply come out and say what they say, we are effectively giving a major, major gift to the forces of austerity and of regression, the forces of the establishment. These manifesta are really not worth the paper that they are written on, because they are not plans of how, you know, people out there, Gonzalo, I was saying this earlier, you need to go and talk to the person on the street, you know, on the bus, in a conference, and say to them, look, we could do A, B, C, and D to get there. If you simply say to them, I want that, they say, yeah, okay, fine. And I want to be tall and have blonde hair. Irrelevant. There's also one thing, the first part of the list, Carlos, where it says we want an economy which is moving away from the aim of GDP growth and so on and so forth. Okay, of course. But for us, and this is, I think, something which is very important for DiEM 2.0, for what we're trying to do now to, you know, recast DiEM after the 2019 period, for the post-COVID-19 period, you know, the new DiEM, refurbished, rethought. Post-capitalism. You cannot ask for moving away from GDP growth without asking for a transition from capitalism to something different. You see, capitalism is a system based completely on the primacy of exchange value, of prices. Anything that doesn't have a price in capitalism doesn't matter. Whether it's a tree or a human being, you know, it's a system, the purpose of which is to maximize profit. Profit is price times quantity minus cost, right? So if we live in capitalism, the only thing that matters is GDP. Capitalism can never do anything other than be, you know, it's like a moth, a little fly at night going to the light. You can't say to the fly, don't fly to the light. That's what the fly does. It's in the DNA of the fly to fly to the light. Similarly, capitalism is about profit maximization. And GDP as a measure measures that which motivates capitalism. You can't say, I want capitalism, but I don't want GDP growth. It's like saying, I want the little flies and I want the light, but I don't want the flies to go to the light. It's silly. You can't just say that. So if you really want to move up to a society where GDP doesn't matter, and we don't even care about GDP, you need to talk about redistribution, but not the way that this Dutch manifesto speaks of it. Because the Dutch manifesto is about redistributing income, right? That's not, you know, that's the old-fashioned social democratic idea. You have capitalism, markets, incomes accrue to different people, and then the state comes and takes money from the rich and gives it to the poor. That is never going to work, because the state will always belong to the rich and they will never redistribute, especially in the Eurozone. There are no instruments for redistributing serious amounts of money from the rich to the poor, okay? If we want GDP not to matter anymore, we need to redistribute not money, but property rights. Who owns the business? That must be redistributed. And it must be redistributed away from the 5 companies in the world that own 90% of the companies, okay? The 5 owners of capitalism you don't even know of. Have you ever heard of State Street? State Street owns large part of JP Morgan, many airlines, parts of Google, parts of Facebook. You've never heard of them. So if you want the redistribution, let's redistribute the ownership of companies. In other words, socialize them. Then, and only then, can we talk about an economy that does not get guided by GDP. So the Dutch manifesto for me is, you know, it's like a Jehovah's Witness who comes to me and says, I want everybody to love everybody else and join our church. I'm not interested. DiEM25 is far ahead of that, but we need to get even further ahead. We need to be more radical. We need to have better ideas. We need to have a blueprint about post-capitalism. We started this idea in Prague last November, but you know, in the same way we worked for 4 years for the Green New Deal, we need to work for another 3 or 4 years for post-capitalism.
Thank you very much, Yanis. This was illuminating. Gonzalo has asked for the stage. Please, Gonzalo.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to talk about two things. One is a very short reply to Yanis. I feel I'm a little bit more optimistic in some point to what to his arguments, though I might be less informed for sure. But just I don't know if you have. Do you know this author and this the Donut Economics and Kate Raworth?
Yes, very well. Personally.
Very well. Personally, okay. I don't know her personally. I've read the book and I've attended some of her TED Talks. It's just an example, no? But it's the kind of person which is obviously less radical than DiEM, but I would like to talk to her and to somehow, I would love to be her support in some of the, I don't know if she would join a radical movement like DiEM, no? But I'm sure it's just an example, no? And maybe if you can reply to this and then I do a second part of my, are there people in the middle way? I don't know if she's considered to be in the middle way, no? That have ideas that are very close to what we are saying here, but maybe they say it in a softer tone. So I don't say we shouldn't use a radical tone, but I think we should talk to people who say similar things in softer tones to join forces.
Gonzalo, I'll be very frank with you. She's a fine person. I've been on stage with her twice. She's interviewed me on stage in England. I've talked about her book as well. These are all wonderful fellow travelers. They will only come to us, okay, and add something. They will never be leaders. They will never be activists. But if we manage to create a wave and, you know, to create a momentum, right, then all these people will come and join us because they will like the limelight. But movement building is what we must do. And if we do that well, they'll all join.
Okay, that's fine. I'm very reassured by the fact that you think it's a person. Okay, that's great. I'm reassured. Then the main part of my comment was about what Foteini just told us about what they are doing in Greece. And I want to say that this is, for me, it's very, very inspiring. And I think we of course need to be aware of the foes, no? And I can tell you that, and as an anecdote, these days I'm reading Churchill memoirs about just 1940, just before the war, and how one of the things he said in the preface is he thinks it should be called I'm reading it in Spanish, no? The absurd war, or the war that could have been evitada, no? Avoided, no? So easily, no? So of course there are risks, but there are also opportunities, and I think that what Foteini has told us, for me, is great. Is as great as when we didn't think that we would have a black president, a progressive black president in the United States, and then we had Obama get elected, and that was a surprise, no? So of course there are bad surprises, but Obama's election was a surprise, positive surprise. Then of course we were disappointed because he did a very small part of what I guess the fact that we have Podemos in government right now, in a coalition in Spain, is a positive surprise that nobody could imagine 10 years ago when we were in the streets in Madrid, no? And these were called anti-systems. These guys are hippies. They are, you know, they're not able to do anything. So I am optimistic, and I really think what we are talking now, I don't know if it will be ourselves, but people like ourselves, I think we have an opportunity to change the future of Europe, the future of generation of our kids, or I don't have kids myself, no, of my nephews. So it is very important to tell the world. That's why I say we need to have this kind of talks, and we have to invite probably Foteini or your colleagues to come to Spain and to talk and to say that there are people right now in a European Parliament, in the Greek European Parliament, that when they get the stage, they don't talk from a national perspective, they talk from a European perspective. No, I think this is as we said, there is in the DiEM manifesto, this is a very radical idea, and the fact that it's not only the manifesto, but it is also. Yes, okay, just a summary.
Interrupt, but
Okay.
let's not make it.
Okay, but how can we achieve this in Spain? So thank you, but how can we achieve this path in Spain or in other countries of DiEM?
Michael asked for the stage. Please, Michael.
Yes, I think possibly what I'm saying goes in a similar direction. I feel that we are falling into the trap of enjoying discussing all the things that ought to happen, without actually getting down to the quite the nuts and bolts of how to do it. Now, Yanis said, right, we need to talk to the person on the bus about all these possibilities, all these ideas, which I fully understand and fully agree with. I think that is one of the approaches. But the thing that really bothers me is that person whom we convince of, if you like, a new way that there might be. How do we get him or her agency actually to have a to feel that he or she has a role, can do something that is really going to make a difference? Because we all have lots of ideas and we talk to our friends about them, but all of us feel that we don't actually have any influence on anybody, and in fact that that our representatives do not represent us, which is a fundamental. So can anybody give me an answer?
Simona, can I interrupt just for 1 second, because I realize that in a few minutes I need to go to an interview. Do you mind if I have a very quick answer to Michael, because then I'll have to say goodbye. I have a television interview happening.
Yeah, of course.
It never stops. Michael, very quickly. I didn't just suggest that we speak to people on the bus or in a conference, or I made a very concrete suggestion. A collective action that is local, but also pan-European. That gives people agency. When they can become part of the change, they can participate in a collective action that concerns what's happening around the corner, but also they get support from DiEMers in Sweden, in Greece, in Cyprus. That, in conjunction with the program, with what we tell them, is for me the answer to your question. It's not enough to speak to them, as you said. It's important to give them agency, and the way to give them agency is by making them part of a collective action in which they are the agents, or even to give them an opportunity to think themselves of some action that then we support. On this note, I'm very, very sorry. It's in 1 minute, 1:45, I have to be on a silly Greek television program. But I hope we do this again very soon. We have to keep doing it, not just once, again and again and again. Simona, many apologies for interrupting.
It's not. Thank you very much, Yanis. To the next Beyond the Balcony. Borja had asked for the floor. Please raise your hands, and I might need to disconnect for some seconds. So Borja, please.
Okay. Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to tell that I really strongly agree with what Yanis said, and also Jordi talked about in implementing the Green New Deal in a local way. I think is the most easy way to think about it, with ideas that we can see and even touch in our cities. For example, less plane travels because of the pollution, or even introduce helps in order to buy electric, not cars, but bicycles or other ways to transport in the city, green transports, let's say, and also implement like other local touristic places to give a bit of air or breathing, like to the big cities that are really crowded and are really hurt by the strong tourism. On the other side, I wanted to just to let the CC know, or just to get a fast answer about what happened in the last month in Spain with like the big new with Europe versus Spain, with we call them in Spain coronabonos. They are the SBBS, like the bonds that Europe gives the money to Spain. We were like wondering in which way Europe can help us. From Brussels, they said no at first. So people in Spain get very angry with Europe. And I think that's a topic that we should talk about in order to make people less angry against Europe, and to let them know that there is other way, not only going away from Europe, which is what I heard last month. And that's all. That's those two things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Borja. Marta had asked for the stage. Please, Marta.
Yes, thank you, Simona. Yeah, I'm agree with Borja about the Eurosceptics. It's a movement that maybe in Spain is growing because of the response of Europe to us, and I think we have a lot to learn from Greece, maybe, because I think maybe they were in a similar stage, and as we saw, Mera has representation. And on the other hand, I was thinking and have the question, if we are introducing in our message that it's possible that in some kind we have to refuse to some privilege that we have as working class or middle class, but in Europe. I mean, if we are talking about moving away from GDP growth and moving away from the constant growing, because it's not I mean, it cannot be like that. We are growing upon the limits, and I think we will have to give away some of our privilege. We are not going to be able to consume the way we are consuming now, because we are doing it on the basis of the working class limits. I mean, with bad conditions of people in our countries, in Europe, and all around the world. So I think this is another problem, another goal to reach with our ideas and our speech. How can we change the way we live, the way we consume, and how do we do it in a I don't know how to say, like not giving away this constant growing that we have seen is not good for us.
Somebody wants to answer, or shall I give the stage to Alberto? Oh, okay. Alberto, please.
So thank you very much, friends. Overall Europe. So we have this marvelous plan, which is the Green New Deal for Europe, which is a continental plan. And we today also talked about the fact that it includes also a European agency for the green energies, for the perfect and clear reasons Yanis has told everybody. Currently, we also have a Green New Deal for Europe European task of volunteers, of members who are very skilled in the environment and highly technical. They have highly technical also profession, and they are doing request a survey for the local DSC, a blueprint which is coming from the Green New Deal European task to all the different local collectives and members, asking to work for the local Green New Deals. Of course, when we talk about Green New Deals locally, we are not talking about the overall continental platform, but we are talking about ways we can, in our cities, regain conversion of the economy and also work against the pollution. Of course, this cannot be done without an overall European coordination, because that is our movement, that is our purpose, that is our war. We are working on the overall continental environment. This is one of the good, I really think it is one of the good skills and tasks of our movement, that we are not a federation of independent local parties. We are a continental movement. We don't have independent electoral wings working on their own local electoral interests. We are not running for every little election, but we are working on a bigger picture, on a more important picture, and on a longer path. Regarding this, I'm also happy to bring home today this offer of live streaming every NC meeting. This is a very interesting and transparent way of working in our inner democracy, and we'll be glad to follow through with that. And furthermore, I guess we need to work together. We are the first in the line to work together in this, to work together for a European citizenship. We must act, we must work, we must build our inner unity. We must follow this European unity because it's the unity we want. Regarding this, I am asking, I am offering, I am proposing to everyone here, let's start to think, as we already said last month, on the next European Assembly, the Prague 2. Let's start to think on our next academy. One day we will be able to go out in the streets and to go out of our houses. Let's start to work on this gathering together as a movement, because we know that when we can work together, we are irresistible. So let's please start to think of our next academy and Prague 2. Europe must be unified, and we are the unifiers if we unify ourselves. So please join us if you want. We are here to help each other. Thank you.
Applause, Alberto. You're totally right. So we have 5 minutes left. I think I can give Jordi, sorry, the stage for the conclusion of this very, very interesting meeting. I take the opportunity to thank all of you for this wonderful and inspiring talk we had. Jordi, sorry, please.
Thank you, Simona. I don't know if to say anything after Alberto's speech. I absolutely agree, and thank you for encouraging us to go forward. I'm very glad about the meeting we had. I think we have very interesting people in Spain that can say many things. So let's keep working. It's true that many of us are on the ENC from a very short time, so we're just beginning to work on it. So, but I hope that this work keeps going on and we'll have many fruits in Spain. Just to answer some of the things, well, my opinion, some of the things have been said on these last interventions about Borja. I don't think we have to justify the European Union because of what they are doing. On the contrary, we have to denounce them. I mean, it's amazing that after so many years in the European Union, we cannot issue some bonds in a crisis like we're having now from all the countries of the Union. So that means a lot about what this union is going to. We have to denounce it. We have to say that that's bad, absolutely bad, and that's a mistake. But on the other hand, we have to say there's another road for the European Union. Going out of the European Union is not going to matter. Going out of the European Union is going to let the ultra-right go forward their idea about better races than others, Spaniards better than Catalans, Catalans better than, I don't know, for French, so on. That's not better for the working people. We're not going to be in that environment. And also it's going to have huge costs at this moment leaving the European Union. So it's going to get poverty to us. But there's another path. DiEM25 made a proposal, we could issue Corona bonds, and the thing is not just issuing them, is to whom we give this money. Do we give it to banks? In Spain, ICO made several lines granting banks, not granting people, granting banks for the money they let. And at this moment, what the banks are doing is giving them money to the same clients they had in the past, but with the grants of the government. So nothing changed. It's just we're giving more money again, one more. And it's not a European level. It's also Spanish level. We go out to the European Union, we're gonna find out is the oligarchy doing the same as the European Union is doing. So we have to make people realize that the oligarchy of every one of our countries is the same, that is has years as the oligarchy in the European Union. So it's not going out from one oligarchy to another one. What we have to do is changing policies in both levels. And about Marta, I mean, this is a very, very interesting issue she brought to the discussion. We don't have time. Maybe we have to someday just have this issue for the discussion about eternal growth. But just two things I wanted to comment. She said, talked about the privilege of consuming. Well, I think consuming every day more and more and more is a privilege. I don't think that makes people happier. And on the other way, that leads us to poverty. We have more poor people today than 20 years ago. In Spain, there are people in a poverty situation that has a job. We didn't have that from decades. There is people because we are wanting to buy a t-shirt half price in order to be able to buy another one next week. So what do we do is take our factories to Bangladesh under natural conditions. So that way we can buy, some people can buy it every week, but our children is not going to have a job because the job is abroad. So I don't think this is a privilege. I think this, and the other thing is that the life of products. I mean, the mobile phone, why do we change it every year? Really? I mean, they made us need it, but we don't. So we're going to have the same privileges, the same privilege with another economic system, from my point of view.
That's illuminating too, Jordi. I'm trying. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. This is only the first of these meetings. The video shall be uploaded on YouTube and we'll have subtitles for Spanish-speaking people. And this is just the beginning. Continuons les combats. Thank you very much to everybody, and see you in the streets when it will be possible, and in the internet fighting by now. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bravo, Simona.
Thank you, everybody.